Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Finch. I am the outgoing Chief Engagement Officer for Management Performance Hub, and it's my pleasure to introduce the next seminar, Navigating the Intersection of Data Governance and Records Management in the Public Sector. Most of us are engaged in what we call the 5 rights of data, getting the right data in the right format to the right people at the right time to make the right decision. But once these 5 rights are executed, we still have an obligation to maintain the privacy and security of this data and to preserve not only the data itself, but also the manner in which the data is accessed, analyzed, and presented for public consumption. When you consider the impact of artificial intelligence on public data, it's even more imperative that we incorporate greater data quality, security, transparency, and accountability into these 5 rights. With us today are 2 of the state's leading authorities on data governance and records management to help us navigate the intersection of data privacy, governance, retention, public access, and ethics. Felita Lopez is an electronic records archivist with the Indiana Archives and Records Administration, where she joined that agency earlier this year. She holds a master's degree in library and information science and a graduate certificate in archival studies, both from Louisiana State University. And she also has bachelor's degrees in both anthropology and art technology from Purdue University. Jen Cooper is Assistant General Counsel for the Indiana Management Performance Hub, focusing on matters of privacy, data protection, and artificial intelligence governance. Jen is a member of the advisory board of the International Association of Privacy Professionals and is a certified information privacy professional. Jen is also a former state ethics director and earned her Juris Doctor from IU McKinney School of Law, a Master's of Science in Counseling and Psychology from Indiana University, and a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Loyola University in Chicago. So please join me in welcoming Felita and Jen.
All right, thank you, Greg. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, well, I'm excited to be here today with Felita to explore the critical intersection of records management and data governance practices. Together, these practices enable state agencies to effectively manage, preserve, and utilize their information assets to maximize public benefit and enhance public services. So as a roadmap of where we'll be going today, Felita will do an introduction of the Indiana Archives and Records Administration. I'll talk about the Responsible Data Program. Felita will talk about records management and data retention. And then we're going to bring it all.
The efficient and secure management of governmental records. And we provide services throughout the life cycle of records, including creation, use, storage, and disposition. So the Indiana State Archives itself exists to protect and provide access to primary source and historical government documents that contribute to Indiana's heritage. So our agency consists of 4 different divisions: the Indiana State Archives, which is usually what people think of, but we also have our Records and Information Management Division, our State Imaging and Microfilm Laboratory, as well as our Records Center. So I am part of the Records and Information Management Division, also referred to as RIM. So what is RIM? IARA's RIM team provides assistance and education for Indiana's government agencies and offices in managing, maintaining, preserving, transferring, and disposing of public records. The RIM team works with state agencies and county and local offices to develop and update retention schedules and balance the storage needs of government offices, state, federal, and programic retention schedule requirements, as well as the needs for preservation of documents with permanent historic value. And within RIM, I am part of the Electronic Records Program, which assists all Indiana government entities with the challenges of using, preserving, and transferring records in digital formats to the Indiana State Archives. All right, you may not automatically associate IARA with data management, but with all new technologies, the Records and Information Management Division is paying close attention to how record management and data intersect. We began watching this area during the pandemic when many states saw an unprecedented explosion of public data. We also kept an eye on data visualization tools and focused on Tableau and COVID-19 dashboards. In 2021, we formed a nationwide task force of record managers at a federal, state, and local levels to discuss archiving these dashboards. We also sit on MPH's Data Governance Council, serve on the Data Governance Council AI Committee, and are part of the Data Privacy Officer Program. And briefly, before I go any farther, I just wanted to define some terminology that you will hear throughout this presentation. So first is retention schedule. If you don't know, a retention schedule is the list of records created and stored by your agency. And on retention schedule, you will see multiple record series. And a record series is just a group of identical or related records that serve the same function and have the same retention period. And a retention period is the amount of time a record must be kept. Two other terms are archive, which is the process of transferring records scheduled to come to the Indiana Archive. And it is also the process that the Indiana Archive maintains those records. And then the last term is destroy, the process of destroying records regardless of their format so that they cannot be reconstituted in any way, shape, or form. So this includes deleting electronic records as well. All right, so data and records are terms that are often used interchangeably, however, they are not the same thing. And it can be hard to separate them and understand what our responsibilities as creators are if the managers and public records are used in the same context. So if they aren't the same thing, what are they? Well, data, as defined as ARMA International, are symbols or characters that represent raw facts or figures and form the basis of information. Data must be organized to be usable. Raw data on its own is devoid of context and has no meaning. Data can be thought of as the building blocks that create a record. So what is a record? Records are any recorded information regardless of medium or format. Public records specifically are any recorded information, again regardless of medium or format, created in the course of public business in which they belong to the public. Records are often comprised of data. So if we're thinking of data as the building blocks, records are then the castle that we create out of those building blocks. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jen.
All right, thank you. So in talking about responsible data, this is a newer umbrella term that MPH has created. Earlier this year, we integrated our legal, privacy, ethics, and data governance team under this one umbrella called the Responsible Data Program. So as you can see, the responsible data components are the privacy, ethics, data governance, and then also we cover trustworthy AI initiatives as well. So as you can see here, basically the Responsible Data Program's mission is to enhance privacy and ethics to improve the quality of life for Hoosiers through data innovation and collaboration. And we do this by empowering innovation and maintaining high standards of data privacy and stewardship. In terms of the data governance, there we go. In terms of the data governance specific initiatives under the Responsible Data Program, we have our Data Governance Council, which encourages agency participation in data governance initiatives. It's basically defined as the council to establish and formalize a cross-domain interdisciplinary group to further the data-driven capacity of organizations and the state as a whole. And this council also includes specialized committees for including privacy and AI. And the state has also adopted the what's called the DCAM model for its data governance framework. So that stands for the Data Management Capability Assessment Model. It's put out by the EDM Council, who we actually have. They have a booth here with us today. So we've kind of adopted their framework, or we have adopted their framework, and the data governance team works with agencies to conduct DCAM assessments. So it analyzes their baselines for data quality and data management and identifies their strengths and weaknesses and helps them improve their overall data management practices. And then data governance also is implementing the Enterprise Data Governance Catalog. This is a product that Informatica is helping us implement. It's going to be able to capture all the data throughout the state. Each agency is going to scan their data. It's going to collect the metadata so we know what we have, where we have it. And this will improve efforts for use of the data more efficiently, data quality, and also we can control access to all that. So it enhances security as well. Privacy and data ethics component. So the chief
the Chief Privacy Officer oversees the program, and he works to unify privacy efforts across the state. And we also have designated agency privacy officers for each agency, and they're responsible for developing privacy programs within their own agencies according to the privacy policies that we put out through MPH. And then we also help agencies, like the DCAM assessments for data governance, we help them conduct privacy impact assessments to gauge their privacy maturity. It's another NIST-based methodology, and it basically just evaluates and mitigates privacy risks. And then we have the legal and regulatory compliance component, which is adhering to all statutes and regulations that apply to data, including state and federal ones, such as FERPA and HIPAA. This includes the Fair Information Practices Act, so this includes protections for data subjects, and it's operationalized through our state policies. And then we have the State Information Privacy Policy, which applies to all executive branch agencies, ensures compliance with FIPA and all the other regulations in place. Then, in terms of artificial intelligence initiatives, these are possible because of all the other components of the Responsible Data Program coming together. To have a responsible AI, you need data governance, data quality, controls, privacy and regulatory compliance, and then we also have a specific AI systems policy, which is based on the NIST AI risk management framework. And we chose this framework because the federal government adopted it. We use other NIST frameworks for privacy and cybersecurity in the state. And right now with AI, there's a lot of gray area in terms of regulations and law, so it's hard to base it on specific regulations. So we thought a risk-based approach would be more appropriate and the best option, especially since AI presents such unique and complex risks like bias, model drift, misinformation, things like that. And we also have a standards document operationalizing the NIST AI risk management framework. Then, in terms of collaboration and innovation, we have the enhanced research environment. So this is a secure collaboration for researchers leveraging state data. So instead of sending state data to different parties outside of the state, we can put it in a secure container that they can access and do their research within, but they can't pull any sensitive information out, and they can't see other people's data that we've provided as part of their projects. Interagency data sharing. Recently, the Chief Privacy Officer and I worked on creating data sharing templates to make this process easier and ensure that all the specific protections are included for privacy and security purposes. And we also provide privacy as a service. The Chief Privacy Officer and our team partner with agencies to advise on various privacy issues and risks as they're presented. And then also privacy and procurement. So cloud service providers, for cloud service provider contracts, we provide specific boilerplate terms to ensure that we're covering all the legal bases. And with that, I'll turn it back over to
Thank you. Oh no. There we go. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about records management and data retention. So managing data and records management can seem very daunting at first. We acknowledge this. And often people initially approach this in one of two ways. The first way is saving the entire contents of a database indefinitely. And the second is wanting to transfer the entire contents of the database to the Indiana archives. However, neither of this is best practice or sustainable. We don't want them. A good general rule of thumb is to avoid retaining the entire contents of a database indefinitely unless you have a good and clearly written business use case. IARA will almost never accept the entire contents of a database into the Indiana archives. Okay, so from a healthy records management and data management standpoint, saving the entire contents of a database indefinitely, as I said, is not best practice. And this is for several reasons. The first being, indefinitely is not a recognized time frame in records management. It is always best to place a specific lifespan on data and records. For example, this can be days, months, years, or until your agency no longer exists. So whenever you feel compelled to write indefinitely, it's better to have a more specific lifespan, like until your agency no longer exists. The second is, even the most lenient storage plan will run into a brick wall in the form of your agency's budget, vendor capacity, or scalability. Third, even if data or a record should or could have been destroyed, if you still have that record, if it is still accessible and someone wants it, you may be compelled to produce it, while you would not have if you had destroyed it when you were supposed to. And the fourth is, good data retention policies retain personal data for only as long as that data is necessary to perform a purpose. Is that it? Okay. So, as I said, only in very rare cases would the Indiana Archives consider archiving the entire contents of a database. And there are several reasons for this. The first being size. As we know, databases can have a massive footprint and there is only so much space. The second is minimal historic significance. Not all data will have historic significance. The third is emulation challenges. Emulating the user experience of a database dashboard or other visualization tool can be extremely expensive, a heavy tech lift, and in some cases, just not possible depending on the vendor that you are using to create your database. And lastly, there is access challenges. This is similar to emulation, which is providing users access to the database may simply just not be feasible for the Indiana Archives. I do want to give a brief historic note that data that could potentially be worth accepting in its entirety would be something like the COVID-19 dashboards that powered the IDOH Tableau COVID-19 dashboard. The challenges that would come from serving this amount of data from the Indiana Archives might be too steep for us to actually be able to pull something like this off, but given the historic nature of the pandemic, it is something that we would consider if possible. All right, so I have been telling you what not to do with your data from a records management perspective. What should you be doing? The first step when managing any record is to figure out which record series it falls under on your retention schedule. Depending on which agency you are with, you will use one or more of these retention schedules. So we have our general state retention schedule, as well as agency-specific and division-specific if you were in a large enough agency where you have multiple divisions. Any of these could be relevant to the records that you are creating. The second step is to understand and adhere to the retention requirements for the record series that you identified as relevant. Here are the three most common retentions. The first is transferring to the archive, so giving it to us. If you have a database that is scheduled to be transferred to the archives, please let us know. We may need to update your retention to better reflect these records are now part of a database as opposed to paper or forms or whatever they were previously. We will work with you to figure out if a historic subset of data does need to be transferred. The second most common retention is maintained permanently within your agency. This means that your agency has decided to keep a copy in your personal database permanently. The third is destroying after X amount of years. However, there may be additional requirements associated with this, such as after an audit, depending on what kind of data it is. But generally, if you see this on your retention schedule, that means that you can get rid of this data after a certain point has passed. You may also see a combination of these three, the most common being the first and second one, where a subset is transferred to the Indiana Archives and your agency also decides to keep a copy permanently in-house. All right, and before I hand this back over to Jen, I'm just going to give a brief case study to kind of more talk about, or more explain what I'm talking about in actual terms instead of just theoretical. So the State Personnel Department creates and maintains staffing records for all state of Indiana employees. Over the years, these records have gone from primarily paper to largely digital. Today, a bulk of these records are stored in raw data form in multiple systems. These records fall under two record series on SPD's Employment Administration Division retention schedule. Record series 84907 and 87200. Because of the shift from paper to digital, these two series needed some serious updating. In 2003, SPD and IARA worked together to revise both series to better reflect current practices. Record series 84907 is a staffing and manning report containing information of state of Indiana employees. It became a streamlined report that focused on only a historic subset of the larger data set, as again, we didn't want all of the information, just what we deemed historic. The report is now scheduled to be transferred to the Indiana Archives annually. The second record series, 87200, are personnel files and are a combination of paper, digital files, and data. They are now maintained permanently in the agency until such time as SPD no longer exists, at which point they will then be transferred to the Indiana Archives. And pass it back to you.
All right, thank you. So we've heard about records management at the state and the Responsible Data Program, as well as some specific information about records management and data. So now it's time to kind of bring it all together and talk about how these different initiatives intersect with each other in some various areas of information management. So we have retention and disposal of data, compliance with legal and ethical standards, transparency and public access, data integrity and quality, security and safeguards, the role of technology, and then interagency collaboration. So let's start with retention and disposal. How does records management play into that?
Yeah, so from a records management perspective, there's a lot of emphasis on defining clear retention schedules for various types of records, including digital records. We also want to avoid indefinite retention of records to ensure scalability and compliance with both legal and budgetary constraints.
Okay. Great, and on the responsible data side, you've probably heard the term data minimization before. It's a principle that's both in the Fair Information Practices Act and appears throughout different policies from our office. And that just aligns with the record management practices of retaining data only as long as necessary and only collecting and maintaining data that you actually need. And policies that specify the ownership of source data to ensure both legal compliance and efficient use of storage resources are also found throughout the Responsible Data Program. And that's basically to just kind of make clear that MPH does not own any data. So even if we're helping agencies share their data or conduct data analysis, when it comes down to who actually owns that data and is responsible for retention and disposal, the policies state that you have to look to the IARA guidelines. And then moving on to compliance with legal and ethical standards.
Yeah, so from a records management perspective, we emphasize an adherence to statutory requirements for maintaining and disposing of records and ensuring both historical and legal compliance. We also manage public records requests in line with legal guidance to balance transparency and confidentiality. So a big thing that we say a lot is serving the public without endangering the public. So being able to provide this information as much as possible without endangering anyone's privacy.
Awesome. And for responsible data, we're talking about compliance with the Fair Information Practices Act and all the other privacy laws and regulations that ensure the ethical and legal handling of personal information. So that takes up a bulk of the time with our responsible data team, making sure that when we're exchanging data with third-party researchers, that we're allowed to share that data, what data they can have, make sure we're delivering it securely within that enhanced research environment, and that all the proper data sharing agreements are in place. And then it also involves implementation of those privacy impact assessments I discussed earlier to help agencies manage their privacy risks and ensure regulatory compliance across the board. And now to transparency and public access.
Yeah, so for records management, this is very similar to the last point, where it's, again, serving the public without endangering the public. So with handling public records requests, we want to be able to provide access to information while also still protecting sensitive data. So being able to give important statistics, but maybe block out social security numbers that are on there for some reason. Don't want to give those out. Ensuring that archived records are accessible to the public, but still under appropriate circumstances.
Great, yeah, and for responsible data initiatives, this means providing transparency about how personal data is collected, used, and shared through privacy notices and just-in-time notices. So every website on the state of Indiana's in.gov includes the privacy notice, letting everyone who visits that page know what is being collected, why it's being collected, who it's being shared with, and various other information. And then for our AI systems, which we have with DWD, we have their Pivot Workforce Recommendation Engine. We have a just-in-time notice that pops up when users are about to use it, so they know that they're interacting with an AI system, what the system's going to do, and any risks involved just by virtue of it being an AI system. And that they have to opt in to that before they can proceed actually using the system. And then it's also ensuring that data exchange between state agencies and with outside researchers is handled consistently and transparently, maintaining confidentiality where required. Data integrity and quality.
Yeah, so from a records management perspective, we want to ensure that records, whether physical or digital, are accurate, complete, and maintained in a manner that preserves their integrity over time. So something as a electronic records archivist that we come across a lot is records or data being stored in a format that is no longer deemed accessible. So think of like a floppy disk. In 2024, a floppy disk is no longer considered accessible. So we want to make sure that our records and data are constantly being transferred over to new formats so that they not only are preserved, but are maintained and accessible.
And then for responsible data, that means implementing data quality measures to ensure that processed data is accurate, complete, and relevant to its intended use. So we have the responsible data team is revising and will soon put out a new statewide data quality policy that's going to go over some initiatives that agencies can take to ensure that they have the most high quality data available for its purpose. And this also applies to AI systems as well. AI system is only as good as the data going in. So if you're not using quality data in the front end to train it and put inputs into the AI system, it's not going to give you very good results coming out the other side. So want to ensure that AI systems are reliable and trustworthy outputs as much as possible. Security and safeguards.
Yeah, so we want to protect records from any unauthorized access and ensure secure disposal of sensitive information. Like I said, we don't want your social security numbers. Don't give it to us. And if we come across something that has it, we want to make sure that that information is not getting out to the public.
And for responsible data, this means applying robust security measures to protect personal data, including access controls, encryption, and secure data transfer protocols. So that goes back again to the enhanced research environment. It goes back to data sharing agreements that include all the applicable provisions needed to keep data safe and secure. And ensuring that all systems have the appropriate security safeguards to protect against unauthorized access and data breaches, which is also very important. And also for the data catalog that we're implementing too, it's going to have specific access controls and security in place so that while the metadata is available to view throughout the state, we're not going to be able to let outside parties view it or any other agency to change or manipulate the metadata of any other agency. Of technology.
Yeah, so for records management, this is largely leveraging data visualization tools and other technologies to manage archival records effectively. because we not only deal with a lot of the annual reports and records like that, we also have records that deal with oral history or videos and things like that. And I and the other electronic records archivist, Anna, have been working to come up with ways to make this more accessible visually without having someone have to come into the archives to hear these oral histories or see these videos.
And as more agencies are sharing data with each other and doing data analytics activities together, we're seeing more cloud-based environments and analytics platforms come up. And we actually put out a policy to kind of govern how those are used and make sure it's in line with the fair information practices and other privacy standards. And also, just going back to AI, make sure we are implementing those technologies responsibly, guided by the AI policy and other data management practices. Yeah, that's it for that. Agency collaboration. Sorry, I forgot about that one.
Our last one. So interagency collaboration. From a records management perspective, this is coordinating with other agencies to ensure consistent records management practices and compliance with overarching policies. So something that we do is we meet a lot with other agencies to figure out what their retention schedule should look like. So if you're looking at your retention schedule and you're like, why is it like this? We don't do this anymore. We don't submit these forms like this. We don't keep our data like this. This doesn't make any sense. Please, 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 please contact us and we will change it. You just have to ask.
And in terms of responsible data, this means facilitating data sharing and collaboration between state agencies under the established governance and privacy policies, ensuring that interagency data exchanges respect privacy and confidentiality requirements as mandated by law. And our agency helps agencies with those data sharing agreements and the cloud-based analytic systems as needed. That's about it.
I think it's just our contact page.
Yeah.
So again, if you have any records management questions, I'll stay on this slide for a second. Please take a picture. Please contact us. Seriously, we don't bite.